I'm currently deep in the process of fixing up an $800 manual Volvo V70 that I bought sight unseen off of Facebook Marketplace. I'm doing this project to hopefully have a reliable daily driver that I can take on photography road trips. So far, the old engine is out of the car, and in the last episode, I picked up a new used engine to go back in, as well as preparing it with a ton of new fresh seals and parts, so that when it goes back in the car, it can stay in there for many years to come. So last night, I pulled the bumper off this car, which I didn't film because it really wasn't that exciting, but that's because I think today this engine should be going in the car. I have a new accessory belt for it, tensioner that I'm gonna put on. I gotta put on the throttle body still. The flywheel needs to go on. The clutch just came in, which is really exciting. This was the missing link. And it should be a really good day. Hopefully I can get this thing in. Let's get started. After what feels like a long time of this engine sitting on the stand, I'm really excited that it's finally coming off. But before I can go any further, I do have to do one job that I'm a little bit nervous about, which is the rear main seal. I've never done something like this before, and if I screw it up, the transmission will have to come back off of the engine. It put up quite a fight coming off of the engine, but I eventually get it out and tap the new one in with a piece of wood. Originally for this car, I ordered a single mass flywheel, which is this one right here. It just means that there's less moving parts in the clutch system, and this is brand new. It's mechanically much simpler, so I think it would be more reliable, and this you can resurface, so I could probably keep it forever. But it came with its own clutch because it's different than the OEM one, and the clutch for this was completely broken. I tried to get a replacement clutch for it. There's not another whole kit available, and nobody at the company that I bought this from could figure out what the replacement clutch was. So I decided to clean up the original dual mass flywheel. A new dual mass flywheel for this car costs about $1,000. So I decided to figure out how to check the tolerances on the original flywheel, which you do by checking the amount of free play between the two different masses. And it turns out that this one's actually well within spec still. It must have been replaced at some point in its life, and although I was originally a little bit thrown off by the look of the surface, it actually turns out to just be some heat marks, and the surface is still super smooth. So I think for now I'm more than happy to run this dual mass flywheel again and just change out the clutch and pressure plate to refresh the system a little bit. Oh, shut up! That quick? The time has come, and as you can see, my buddy Hector is here once again to help out. We have no game plan other than doing the reverse of how we pulled this thing out, with the exception of maybe a few extra steps. Let's see where we get. Yeah.
So we got it so that we make the 2 parts.
Yeah. There we go. That's probably good enough.
All
Alright, I'm
All
gonna
right.
slowly drop it down.
Going against me.
A little more?
Yeah, maybe try a little more. Okay, please.
Dude, we got it. Tiny bit more. A little bit more?
Yeah, go. Slow.
Fucking.
Okay, slow down.
Oh, fuck. Here's what's going on. We're kind of in, but not yet sitting on the mounts. We're just fixing up this bracket, which is what sits on that bottom motor mount down there, but that bracket's too big that the engine can't go in with it on. Oh, power tool Hector.
That's you, dude. Power tool Willem.
Dude, this thing looks shiny in here. That's looking good.
Motor.
Yeah, it's looking nice. Looks like it doesn't belong. I can't believe it, but the engine is actually in and it's looking really good. I stopped filming a little bit because I'm slowly just reconnecting things down in the engine bay and there's really not much to see. Over here is my list of things that I still have to do. Once everything's reconnected, like all the wiring and all the other crap. My new exhaust manifold is hooked up, it's looking really good. I reconnected all the wiring, transmission's all reconnected. I gotta button up a few more things like the radiator hoses, put some oil in it, coolant in it, transmission oil. And once that's all done, hopefully we'll be starting this thing today. As you can see, back here is my lovely new exhaust manifold. Here's my O2 sensor. When I try to put that in there, it does not freaking fit. So that's pretty annoying because that was specifically for this engine. So now I got to take that back out, take it to a machine shop and see if they'll match it to this guy. All right, it's been a really interesting day today. I looked at the title for the first time this morning. Don't know why I hadn't looked at it before. And it was completely screwed. Like somebody had messed with it, scribbled on it. So I thought I wasn't gonna be able to register it. Somehow went to the registration office. They pulled some serious strings and I walked out of there with registration this morning so I can actually bring the car out on the road today. Just picked up a brand new set of wheels and tires behind me. And then the machine shop just called me and told me that my exhaust manifold is ready and it has a new bung welded into it that will actually fit my O2 sensor. The reason I'm replacing this exhaust manifold to begin with is because the original cast iron one had a really big crack in one of the ports. I didn't even know that O2 sensors came in different thread sizes and this manifold said it would fit this car. But thankfully I had a great machine shop who was able to weld in a new bung so I could actually hook up my O2 sensor and plug this thing in. I went into this project not knowing much about this car, and I really do want to keep it and drive it for a long time. I think maintaining this myself in the future is going to be a big part of making that happen, and I gotta say I don't think there could be a better way for me to learn the ins and outs of this engine than pulling it out of the car, undoing every single nut, bolt, and connector, and then having to put it all back together. Believe it or not, these are my old control arms, and the machine shop that pressed in my new bushings was kind enough to just paint these for me for free, so they look super good. There's a ton more work that needs to be done in the suspension system, but before I just order a ton of suspension parts for a car that isn't even running yet, I'm just gonna bolt everything back together so I can actually put the axles back in, to seal up the transmission and be able to fill it up with transmission fluid. Putting an air filter in a car really feels like the home stretch, and it feels good to get so close to turning the key for the first time. There is no more excuses. Every single thing is hooked up except for the injectors and the crankshaft position sensors so that I can build some oil pressure. But I think it's time to do the thing, turn the key, and just see if it explodes. I even put the axles in with transmission oil in the car so that I could put this thing into gear and see if the wheels or the axles rotate. Oh man. It's time to turn it over and see what happens. Make sure it's in neutral. Nope. Huh. Nothing. All right, time to do some digging. Oh, I found what I think is wrong, which is a loose, not a loose, but this little wire disconnected from the starter. It was hooked up to power, but it wasn't hooked up to the signal wire that I think is supposed to tell it to actually turn, which is a pretty big deal. So let's see if I can hook this up. It's really freaking hard. Here goes attempt number 2. Starter wire hooked back up. I'm hooking the injectors back up, and then the crankshaft position sensor also has to go back in. Okay, I know the oil pump did its job because the oil level changed, so only one thing to do, and that is start it for real. Oh my God. There it is, the engine is actually running and I could not be more excited. Albeit with some misfires and a lot of smoke coming out from under the hood, this car feels like it's getting really close to being done. In the next episode, I diagnose the misfire, get to work with some fancy Volvo software, and deal with some really big brake issues that need to be solved before this car can actually safely drive out of this garage.